Hey guys, did you get the book Beyond the Map's Edge? Or maybe you've been reading the ebook and you're really excited to get started? Well, so are we. We've been promising that we're going to start to break it down, and that's what we're going to do tonight. We're going to get jumped right in. I'm Emma.
I'm Jam, and we are Treasure Hunt with Us. And we originally said we were going to try to go through page 70. We were going to break up to 3. And as we're going through each of these stories, right, we're not going to call them chapters. We probably will call them chapters, actually. But as we're going through these stories, I know, who knows? We're going through these stories. We realize we might not make it to 70, and we don't want an hour-long video. So we're going to go as far as we can, and then we'll just pick it up where we left off. We're going to do another video this week, wherever we left off, and finish soon we have time, because we also have we've been reached out to Justin. We'll have an interview with him, hopefully within the week, maybe 2. It depends how busy. He's busy, obviously. So.
We are in talks. We've been in communications, and I believe that we will have him on the show. And we're really excited because we've had such a great time. He's such a nice guy.
He's so interesting. I mean, this book is awesome, man. It's like when I saw him on Golden Greed, I did not expect this. What they called.
Not who you were expecting to show
I
up.
was expecting a kid who sat at home building a computer all day. You know? So,
well, let's get started, because we're trying to keep this between 30 and 45 minutes, because what we recognized when we started to look at how much notes we were taking in each chapter, that was that if we sat here and did 70 pages, it could be 3 hours. And what we don't
you like to talk a lot. So, as everybody knows,
right?
I've known my whole life.
It's just me.
You like to talk.
But here's the thing: is we want this to be digestible, and it's likely, if you're like us, you are spending a lot of time with this book. It's a new member of your family. Maybe you're spending a lot of time with Golden Greed. I mean, Netflix probably thinks I've got an obsession, and that's okay. Maybe it means they'll stay on longer.
Yeah.
That said, we want to keep these episodes between 30 and 45 minutes. We don't know where we'll stop, but wherever we stop, we'll start up the next day, on the next episode. So let's start with really quick on the dedication. To me, I think that dedication is 100% to his wife, Jenny. For you who cradled me vulnerable moments as if they were your own treasures. Like, come on. I mean, when you do read, you've already read it, but when you've read this book all the way through, you get the Beano story. You recognize that they have a true love, and that's fantastic. I love the dedication. I love that he left it vague so that strangers can think it's really about them. But really, mostly, what I love is that he's giving a tribute to the people who will eventually sacrifice for what he's doing here.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing with the acknowledgement. I don't think there's any hints or clues. The acknowledgement, he goes through and even thanks the people.
I don't know. Oh, in the acknowledgement,
acknowledgement, yeah. So
I'm so excited. Like, I don't know. Yeah, no, you're right. I agree with you.
So we'll probably go right by that one, but let's go into the prologue.
The prologue. I mean, there's a lot to unpack.
Well, the prologue's hard, right? Because that is the story about Brandon. And, a lot of people, I don't know if they realize we're not just family, but we're like best friends and stuff. We're all doing this together. And we decided to do this treasure hunt to spend more time together, which is what we've done. And then he's telling the story about how that's what Brandon and him, that's what this did for them. Right. And, and unfortunately the way it ended was really hard. I just couldn't imagine him. So
and really, by saying the prologue, it's like in this moment, what you don't realize is that he didn't know that he was going to do a treasure.
Right.
But the truth is,
he was trying to find the treasure in that moment.
Right. So. The truth is that the desire to be a hider manifested in the seeking of this process, and which all started with this prologue. So it's really powerful. I want to try to point out where we are, like location wise, in each of these stories. Like we talked about calling it stories versus chapters, because it's not like JCB's book. It is broken into like little bits of stories. It's funny because if you're doing both hunts, which we're actively doing both hunts, there's such a difference to the writing styles, right? So with Justin's book, what you feel like is like you're invited to Thanksgiving dinner, and he's just telling you all these stories, or his family is telling you these stories to kind of help you assimilate and be part of the joy that's been their lifelong journey together, right? And you're getting that in here, because he says, to solve the puzzle, you must know the man.
Yeah, he says that in the next chapter. And the other thing I got out of this chapter or the book, sorry, I knew I was going to do that. The other story I got out of this prologue section is the last place he searched with his brother appears to possibly be Iron Springs, which obviously would have a special memory for him.
Sure.
So that's just something we need to put a bookmark in. Is probably not where he hit it because it might be too sentimental, but it's something we should definitely consider because
always something to consider. The other thing too, what's his message? Tried to think about certain things. His message in the prologue is never forget to live in the moment, because he was so busy looking for his next moment that he missed a significant moment with him and Brandon. Brandon was saying goodbye. I mean, he tells it the very last line is, "I was too busy planning our next search to notice he was saying goodbye." So here he really is telling you, don't forget as you're doing this to be present in the moment, as well as thinking about the next thing you're looking for.
Yes. And speaking of being present in the moment, let's presently go over the poem really quick.
Oh yeah. So each time we want to read the poem, because what our hope is that as we're hunting together through this, all of us, we're going to be able to hear some clue that we can draw back to this piece. So let's read the poem really quick, or at least relatively quickly. You know why I talk so quickly. Can you find what lives in time, flowing through each measured rhyme? Wisdom waits in shadowed sight for those who read these words just right. As hope surges clear and bright, walk near water's silent flight. Round the bend, past the hole, I wait for you to cast your pole. In Ursa East his realm awaits, his bride stands guard at ancient gates. Her foot of 3 at 20 degree, return her face to find the place. Double arcs on granite bold, where secrets of the past still hold. Beyond the reach of time's swift race, wonder guards this sacred space. Truth rests not in clever minds, not in tangled, twisted finds. Like a river's steady flow, what you seek, you already know. So every time I read it, I'm like, okay, what do I know?
Yeah, because as you read more and more, a lot of these words are speaking throughout the not chapter stories that he writes about, and so they just speak to you. And anytime there's a word in there, I try to jump on it. Even like in the introduction, he ends with obsession laid bare and complete with bare encounters, right? One sentence. And I noticed this because Ursa is a bear and it's not capitalized in the poem, so it's definitely interesting. Also in the introduction, I just wanted to bring this up because this sounds incredible to me. He says he spends 780 days trying to find the treasure. He started in 2012. He ended it was found in 2020, right? So he's saying he spent almost 100 days a year searching for this treasure. Is that boots on the ground?
I don't have problems listening to that, because think of it this way: we didn't really start hunting. You didn't get a book until the end of January.
True.
I mean, I went boots on the ground that very first weekend. No, we went boots on the ground February 9th. That weekend of February.
We have a short. Look it up. That's when we put the short up right
away. So
whatever that first short is.
Because remember, I went to meet where my son was. Because
I was in Treasure Island too. I went to Treasure Island before that. So between us, we've been out
16-ish days since the very beginning of this for us, and that's less than 60 days.
It's not quite 3 months, 2.5 months.
Like 2.5 months.
That's not even close.
Because I was boots on the ground this morning, and those shorts are coming.
Yeah, that's right. You were. So, but that's kind of the point, though. We're at a high rate of boots on the ground. If that's 100 days, 100 days. Maybe that's including researching or something like that.
I don't think so. I think he means he was in the field 100 days, and think of it this way: I'm about to go out for another 7. I mean, it's not hard to accumulate them, and I'm not even, it's not hard to accumulate them.
That's true.
It adds up fast. I think it adds up fast.
to 100. That's a third of your time out, boots on the
Yeah.
ground. That's just a lot.
But if you're
Good
like
on
me,
him.
work from a laptop anywhere in the country, why wouldn't you?
True. That is
You
true.
know?
So
If you're like Scott, where you get vacations all the time because you're a teacher and it's hard to be around children all the time. I mean, it adds up. The time adds up.
yeah, this summer you guys are going to be busy, I assume. So
I mean, I'm probably getting an RV so that we could be all over the country this summer.
that's true.
It's a mobile workstation. It's a little bit easier to control my work-life balance and give us the ability to be anywhere in the country.
Yes.
So the one thing about the introduction that I thought was interesting is he's basically telling you can't figure this out without knowing him, right? Come know me. He's inviting you into his mind in the introduction. He says, he left some hints here too. It's talking about the golden greed. It's waiting just beyond your comfort zone, beyond your map's edge.
Yeah, and I mean that's kind of the thing with him, right? Too is it's get to know me, and you're going to understand this poem.
Right.
JCB's a little different. It's basically they're fiction, right? Stories, a lot of it, like the Pokemon story, and so you're just basically trying to decipher. What is this riddle? What is this word play and stuff? And these pretty straightforward. So we're not looking for, does this word mean this or does this word mean this? We are trying to say, does this relate to the poem? Does any of this relate to the poem? Does this section of the story seem to fit a section of the poem?
Well, and to your point, Mike, when we talk about there's such a blur between fiction and reality with JCB, whereas, like I said, each of these stories is like sitting at their dinner table, hearing laughing about a story from their childhood, or from their young adulthood. Like that's really a big difference, to the point that like next week we're leaving. We're gonna do it looks like what we're gonna do is leave from here. I live in North Carolina. We're gonna leave from here and drive to Houston on the trek for JCB from Statesville to Houston. But the reality is, because I know that there's such a mix of fiction and truth, I don't actually have to leave from Statesville, because I don't think that there's any chance he hit it between Statesville and the border of South Carolina and North Carolina. Not this Fox anyway. So as we leave, I'm just going to leave from where I live, because I live in the Charlotte metro area, and I think that that's sufficient, right? I think it's enough.
I think so, and I think those shorts are going to be amazing. I can't wait to see them. And then I'm going to meet up with you on your way back in Arkansas.
In Arkansas,
so
yeah,
that'll
that's
be
going to
fun.
be fantastic as well.
In Arkansas.
But you think about that, and so then, we talk about that, some of this JCB stuff being fanciful. Well, I think what you'll find here too is that some stories are stories that don't apply to the poem, and some stories are stories that have direct relationship to the poem. And those are some of the things we want to try to call out, right?
And I think you're right. I think not every story here, like JCB says, every chapter has a clue. Well, I don't think every story has a clue or hint towards this poem. I don't think it's like that, and maybe I'll ask him. Maybe we can ask him that.
And that's a great question to ask.
But I don't think there's a lot of these that are good. They're great stories. They're good reads, but it doesn't feel like it's anything to do.
I mean, the very first one, Mom's House, what that's telling you, it's the beginning of their background, right? That his parents got divorced, so they get two of everything, 2 birthdays, 2 Christmas, 2 everything. It tells you the relationship of how him and his brother got super close, right?
Well, go ahead.
No, I was to say, it tells you how he's got that mischievous side. For as much as he looks like he might just be one of those sweet, curious, nerdy computer guys, he's not that guy. Like, don't be fooled. He hit on the edge of a horse, hanging off the edge of a horse. So I think that really this I took from the first chapter, story, which is Mom's House. What I really took from this is the love of the game, the love of the hunt, the love of your family, and to not be fooled into thinking that he wasn't always going to try to win.
I agree. It starts on the outskirts of Tucson, Arizona, watched over by the stoic sentinels of Saguaro National Park East. Well, and back then it was called Saguaro National Monument. And then he says, what's the difference anyways? That was kind of curious to me. He's like asking you, what is the difference? I mean, obviously Park East instead of Monument. East is in the poem. So I thought that was interesting. I did what's it called? Look up what the difference is, though, obviously, because he says to look it up. Saguaro National Monument was redesignated as Saguaro National Park on October 14th, 1994 by an act of Congress. This change aimed to recognize and elevate the area's significance, aligning with the status of other national parks. The redesignation also reflected the expansion and consolidation of the park's boundaries over the years, including the addition of Tucson Mountain District and further expansions around there, basically. So they just basically made it bigger and turned it into a national park. So I just thought it was weird that he said, what's the difference anyways? I mean, why put that in there unless he wanted you to know the difference? So there's the difference I've found.
Okay, yeah, no, for sure. And one thing I did when I looked up on that is that it was always covered by NPS. But so I thought, like, why change it? But it didn't get covered by NPS until 1933. So maybe prior to that, it was a state park, or, but it was a monument versus a national park. And so maybe that changes the way they're allowed to fund it too.
Maybe it could also change the rules of whether you can search there and stuff. So I also noticed, though, that very first picture is a picture of his mom, and she's fishing at the place she loves most, the Beaver Head, her favorite fishing hole. So I thought that was interesting. Beaver Head, which is a big area that we're going to be talking about in the Fitzgerald story.
Right, but the first picture is actually of her and her horse. Because remember, she was a horsewoman. Like, he points out that people didn't know that his mother was basically a semi-pro professional horse rider.
I do remember that, but I believe the picture that's the next page in the upper left-hand corner where it says mom fishing the river she loves the most. This is the river she loves the most, and that's the Beaver Head, and it's a picture of the mom. Fishing.
Sure. Okay. Perfect. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's big, right? Because fishing is a big piece of this whole book. As a family is so interesting, because how many times do you think we've been? Well, I mean, think about it. At one point, our father was a part-time commercial fisherman, part-time chef. And I didn't do a lot of fishing, but it was something they did as a family, to the point that they have favorite kinds of fishing. And I was like, what do you mean kinds of fishing? Then you're like, trout.
I've been out with that in the ocean. I get seasick. The ocean. That's what I found. That's why I never went out there. So I am not a deep sea fisherman guy.
It's not in your bones.
No, not in my bones. So I also noticed that he talks about hide and seek as a tactical operation. This is worthy of note because we always talk about treasure hunters, and when they turn into now hiders, we talk about it like hide and seek and how you have to basically change your mindset. And for Justin, this is a tactical operation, so I'm wondering if this will be more tactical compared to other hunts because of his mindset is completely different.
Well, I think he's already told you it's very tactical, because he told you how he planned for it. And it was almost like the moment the Forest Fen treasure was found, and he was able to truly wrap his head around it, because there is so much, there was so much emotional entanglement and situational entanglement with the way it was handled by Jack, that once they recognized what they believed, it was almost instantaneous for him that he was going to buy it to rehide it. Not huge. But he the thing too that I found in here that I thought was interesting is when he says, but I remember the surge of adrenaline, the fear of failure, the terror of being the kid who couldn't solve the puzzle. That really never went away for them, right? It the way he breaks down in Golden Greed when he recognizes that he and Brandon have been right on top of it. I don't know that it gets more real than that.
Well, he talks about the perfect moment also before discovering where anything could be behind, or the next clue brings this tension for him. And I could imagine him right now sitting at home every day, feeling that tension, wondering, oh my gosh, is today going to be the day someone, AKA me, finds his treasure?
There you go. I'm sure that's all he's doing is thinking about you all the time now.
I'm hoping we could make him laugh, because he also mentions his interesting laugh. I'm curious what that is. They call it the laugh. Very interesting to hear what he says. But
no, for sure. Okay, I think that's for me. That's the bulk of the notes I took out of
That's
this.
all the notes.
Yeah.
I took out of that.
Right. Well, the next one is he starts with mom. Gotta love that. Goes to dad's house.
Got to go to dad's afterwards. Also in Tucson, right?
Also in Tucson. Interesting that both of them worked for the railroad.
Yeah, that's interesting. I
Maybe
didn't
they
get as
had.
much out of this one, and I know his dad is one of the four corners of the compass that he talks
Right.
about. His dad, his grandpa Fitzwater, obviously his brother Brandon, and of course his beloved dog Tucker. So I those are the stories that I like to focus on the most because I think that's his way of saying these have the most significance, maybe to his poem. But this one, I mean, it's weird how he says the American Southwest, and he also says, look in the American West. He talks about the American Rockies in the next chapter. It's like everything's the American. Maybe that's how they talk in Arizona or what's it called, but I've just never hear the West, the Southwest. So.
But I do think it's important to understand that, like, obviously knowledge was important to his family. So, like, his dad knew everything about quantum physics, but also could cook a 4-course meal.
I think he had an eidetic memory. The way it's described is that he has the dad has an eidetic memory. That's why you could never win an argument because he'd always remember everything from whenever. So.
Right. It sounds like maybe he kept a little bit of everything too, which I found interesting. But he also kind of talks about how really the beginning of his desire to be a treasure hunter starts with his father when he starts talking about Oak Island, and he's introduced to those kind of, all the different hunts and spinning tales about pirates' gold and stuff like that. So really, he's giving his dad the ode to his dad about the fact that it all kind of started there for them.
Yeah, I mean, his dad stories are some of the best stories. They're really good. He talks about his sense of humor, and the some of the things he says about the sense of humor reminds me of our Uncle Tim. So I could definitely see. I definitely love these chapters and stuff. I like when he says dad's approach to humor is like a mad scientist approaches genetic engineering, always pushing boundaries, occasionally creating monsters. But you have to give him this. It's never, ever boring. That's Tim. So
that's so true. That is so.
Yes, those who are easily offended should be more offended more often. That is something Tim would say. This chapter just screamed Tim to me. I really enjoyed it.
So. Right. It's interesting too to identify our family throughout it, right? And so, like, and it's funny that you came across Tim too, because think about that. Uncle Tim for me is like, he's the chef, he's a fisherman, he's well read, he can play every game, he can play instruments, he can play. I mean, think about that. We called him to go play softball with us in his 50s, and then he played or his 40s, and then for like 20 more years he played softball with us.
He was good. He did great. We won championship.
Best pitchers of all time,
Yeah. I mean, he was going to the Olympics for judos before he blew out his knees. I mean, his life is like that, where it's just interesting, So
and he wasn't. That's huge. He wasn't afraid to reinvent himself, but he never saw it as reinvention. He's just doing. I thought about this, so now I think this, and it's like, okay, you're right. But that was.
I didn't have anything else on this chapter, really. I just, like I said, I think some there's hints, some there's not. And this one,
I think he's like, here's how our family worked. I have a mom, I have a dad. They were divorced. We got 2 of everything. Here's a little bit of each personality. Here's the kind of things I did with each of them. That's what you're learning here. I think the real meat starts in the next story.
The Fitzwaters. This one was just like screaming poem. Everything, the words in here just scream this so much about this poem, right? So starts in Dillon, Montana, which I know a lot of people are like, I'm in Montana. Am I crazy? You're not crazy. That is a good place to be. You're in Wyoming. That's a good place to be.
100% location bias if there's a likelihood that it could be there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. So he talks about the surrounding wilderness, which is the Beaverhead Deer Lodge National Forest, which, again, that's where the mom's favorite fishing hole is, right?
Right.
He talks about Bannock, where there's local lore suggests there are millions in precious metals still hidden in those hills. Is it his precious millions?
I don't know yet. I'll find out and I'll tell you.
Yeah. He talks about Coolidge in this chapter where they would go and find rocks and where they thought they were gold, and his grandpa would always come home and grin and ask, if they had struck it rich yet. I mean, everything's talking about finding gold, finding riches in this chapter.
Wow.
So,
And this is actually where you see the first link to golden greed, too.
yes.
Right? So the one picture, and of course I write in my books, please don't be mad. This picture right here is one of the first pictures you see of his family when Justin's talking in Golden Greed, right? And so when you're looking at the things that draw the book and the series together, that's an example. It tells me that this story is significant and to pay attention. The other thing too, so the Fitzwaters, so this is his mom's father, right? There's in Golden Greed, there's the portion when his grandparents are in town and he's getting his presents, and he goes, "Guess what this is?" And the grandfather goes, "Well, I wouldn't have a clue." And then he flips and he shows the two books, and one of them both of them are about treasure hunting.
Yep.
Like, I mean, again, it comes back to the fact that they're teaching them treasure hunt,
Yeah, exactly. And he actually says, our real treasures, though, were found in Crystal Park, where he learns to hear and understand the rhythm of the land.
I mean, that makes sense. The rhythm of the land, right? Because that very first two lines of the poem is, "Can you find what lives in time, flowing through each measured rhyme?" And really what throws through time with a measured rhyme is rhythm. Like, that is an actual musical quotation. And I mean, he's into music as well, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he wrote one of the songs in.
He co-wrote
with his uncle.
No, with someone else, I think. But he co-wrote one of the songs, and his uncle was featured singing on one of the songs. It was
oh, really? So you misunderstood that. So I thought he co-wrote it with his uncle Hiram.
No, it says he co-wrote one of the songs, which he didn't take any royalty. But then the song before, he says it featured his. It was by somebody else, and it featured his uncle.
Oh, nice, very nice. But that's huge, because I heard a lot of debate in the Discord Zoom. For anybody, believe what you want. For me, the answer to those first two sentences is rhythm.
Yeah, it could be. So it
and
could
it's
be
huge. Something. Rhythm is a big deal throughout the entirety of this book. And Fitzwaters, I mean, it draws right there, right?
He mentions it a lot. So
he does mention it a lot. And he says, our real treasures were found in Crystal Park, where we learned to hear and understand the rhythm of the land. Right. I mean, you read it. Now I've read it. That's powerful.
That's read twice.
But what else did you grab out of this section?
So the smell of pine and wet granite. So
wet
this area, granite's in the poem too, right?
Right.
So then he talks about Blacktail Deer Creek. So a creek compared to a river is less flowing. That's how I kind of take it. Smaller, less flowing, right? He goes, where those fishing waters taught him more about life than a textbook. This is clearly a special place for him, right?
Right.
And then he says, each cast was a story waiting to be told. Each ripple, a whispered secret from the depths. He talks about spending from the depths. He talks about spending years hiking and fishing in Montana and Wyoming creeks, lakes, and rivers. He's going to know those areas better than any other areas. And if he was going to hide someplace, he'd probably want to hide it someplace he knew really well. Montana, Wyoming have to be really good locations for people to be looking at.
Right. Well, and two other things that I saw that I thought were kind of a big deal. So when he was talking about this, he talks about the smell of the pine and the granite, but then he talks about when they would come home covered in the dust, right? And how Grandpa would say, "Did you find your treasure?"
Yes.
That's huge. And that they were drawn to that, like that need to find the treasure, like magpies drawn to sparkle. That's such a big deal. And then the other thing too is rhythm in this chapter, the other second place where he goes, his annual migration may have given us a rhythm to live by.
Yes.
Right. And that's huge. Now, we grew up, our neighbors every year when we were young had a Christmas tree farm. So this chapter starts with how Grandpa would make the migration with the big Christmas tree, right? And like or he would send them the big Christmas tree. And I got to tell you, there's something about the second I smell that Christmas tree smell that brings me right back to home because of that. So I can only imagine that for him, when he's talking about that and when he's writing about that, it all draws, it's not just about, oh, you've read about my feelings or my thoughts. It draws back to the sensation of family over and over and over again.
Yeah, no, I agree.
And there's one big thing I think is really, really huge that ties directly back to the poem. In addition to talking about rhythm, he goes, but it was those northern moments that gave us something far more precious, a legacy of wild places and wilder stories, each one as true as the North Star and twice as bright.
Yeah, which is huge, right? Because North Star is part of the Ursa Major, or is it
right.
Ursa Minor? It's part of Ursa, period, right? And so it's twice as bright, right? He talks about being clear and bright.
Clear and bright. Hope surges, clear and bright. And so I do think it's very interesting how many words tie in this story to the poem itself. I think that when you're looking at places to focus as you're breaking this book down and you're reading it for yourselves, it's probably so important to spend extra time here.
Well, I got even more notes on this one.
Go, let's hear it.
Would you like to hear them?
I'd love to hear them.
Here they go. He says, the tug of trout on the line as I cast into the big holes with a capital H holes, that's the name of it, big holes, crystal water. So crystal again being clear, bright, right? As hope surges clear and bright, walk near water's silent flight, round the bend, past the hole, wait for you to cast your pole, right? He says the sound, you can hear the sound of pine needles crushing underfoot as he goes around Jefferson's winding banks. Right. So he talks about stories of you can hear whispering of gold hunters through the trees. That whole paragraph right there just feels about like that's literally the Fitzwater paragraph slapped on the page in there. And this area that he's talking about, this big holes, crystal water around there, that's got to be, I don't know how it would fit with anything else, but that is a huge one to me.
Well, it's 4 pages. It's 4 pages of story, but 4 pages of rich dialogue and information. So again, when you're looking at this book and when you're breaking it down, and that's what this whole show tonight's about, is breaking it down, right? So when you're breaking it down, I encourage you to recognize 3 really important things on the Fitzwater. Number 1, you have the verbiage. The verbiage ties directly to the poem. Number 2, you have the picture. The picture ties directly to the series, right? Number 3, when you're looking at knowing the man, is there really anything more important than understanding where they see their foundation coming from? Yeah. And again, coming back to the series, the 4th thing I'd say is you're going to read a lot of stories about his family throughout this. The whole book is like just family. But there's nobody outside of obviously what happened with Brandon. Nobody in the series is more predominant than his grandpa Fitzwaters. And he's got the pictures up constantly.
He's also one of the 4 compasses.
There you go.
And I think that's why we spent a lot of this show talking about it. We were talking about going to page 70. We made it to page 13. Dang it, man. I knew that. Yeah. I mean, if we go on to Posey's on the Road, then it's Posey's Land. And those are kind of together. That's another probably 5-10 minutes. So we should probably stop here. We didn't get even close to how we thought so. When I read this Fitzgerald chapter, or Fitzwater chapter, I'm like, man, this is gonna take.
When you read the Fitzwater chapter, it was so good you had to rename it the Fitzgerald chapter. Is that how happened?
Fitzgerald, Fitzwatered. It's one of the Fitz. Fitzpatrick. It's somebody. Okay.
We just want to make sure you're hearing when we say this. You've probably got your book right now. You may have watched the show. But it never before, if you're doing JCB's Hunt, you were working constantly in word salad. But here you're listening for intent to know the man. know the man, read the stories, but recognize when the signs are saying this is important. And I really do think that the pictures and the story line up to show you how truly important this is. We're so glad you're on this journey with us, and we'll get you the information about Justin's interview. We're very, very excited because we think our questions will be a little bit different, right?
Well, also, what are we going to do at the end of Justin's interview? What are we going to do to help some people out?
Oh, I didn't know we were announcing that.
We're announcing it.
We're going to give away 3 books.
3 books from Beyond the Map Edge.
So my book is covered with writing. Like,
yes.
You're one of those people who writes in books. Your mom was probably not as, my mom let me get away with a bunch of stuff, but I'm like, I've got to touch it, see it, write it, talk about it kind of girl. It's like some of my notes, I'm like, oh my gosh. But I wrote all over this book. So we've got 3 brand new books, never read by anybody else. We're going to give them away to 3 lucky people because we want you to hunt with us. Come treasure hunt with us.
We did the thing, right? JCB trying to get a book was a nightmare. And so we ordered books for this book from multiple places. And some showed up on time, some didn't. The 3 are coming in this Tuesday. We will ship them right
will be
back
there
out.
on Wednesday, by the way.
Yeah.
Just Mom's
Wednesday?
Mom's book will be there Wednesday. I ordered 5 the day we found out about this. So the day it was announced that there was a treasure hunt and it was available to pre-order on Amazon, I ordered 5 that day. And we've gotten 3 of them so far, but then I also ordered from Barnes and Nobles, and that's the 3 books that we're giving away.
So we didn't know which one would get here first. We got books coming in. We're going to be happy to give them away at the end of that interview. We're happy to get back.
We're debating how to do it because we want it to be fair and transparent and open for people.
That's right.
And so what to expect from us this week, because there's a lot coming down the line, right? And we'll do as much as we can. Obviously, we got 13 pages in. We're going to do another breakdown of like the next couple stories and see what we
I think it will go faster. The Fitzwaters.
Dang
it. Fitzwaters. I'm renaming them. We're renaming them. Fitzwaters. I don't know where I'm good from.
Until we get the right one. But it's such an important chapter. Please spend time on it. I don't really think you can solve this puzzle without it.
I would read that chapter multiple times. I think that location is a really good location. That's where I'm going to spend a lot of my time starting my searches as one of them. So.
Right. And we, again, as always, our team is a little bit torn on where they're hunting. So for you, it's there. For Scott, he's looking somewhere else off the map, the map's edge.
A lot of people are like Scott, and that is the Ursa East, right? Realm, his bride, the 3 at 20. A lot of people are on that spot. To me, they're just diving in because it feels like there's the most meat in there. There's a lot of meat. Yeah, and so there's a lot of interesting things. Everybody's looking up star constellations. Everybody's trying to find brides.
I don't want to bride. It's not her.
Yeah, you might want a bride. So
and I will tell you the other things coming out this week. We're going to talk with Nails at Treasure Fix because we have 10 more entrances to give away into that treasure hunt for treasure or no treasure. And then we're going to also talk about JCB later this week because we are going out boots on the ground for 7 straight days.
Right. We're going back to the Pokemon box. We're going to talk a little bit about
the Pokemon box. We're going to go back to our old friend Pokemon.
Yes.
Pokemon Go, Pokemon Regular, all the different things, but there's a lot coming down the line. So be sure to like, follow, and subscribe. Make sure if you are subscribed, you've got your little bells up there so you can see when something new comes out. There's just a lot coming down the line this week. But we appreciate you. We're probably longer than we wanted to. But we'll be back in a couple days. Thanks for watching, guys.
Thanks.
We the